What is good? It is Drip TCG in this beast, and today we have a Shinobird test hands and deck profile video. So there are timestamps in the description for all the parts of the video, and let's get to it. So why am I even making this motherfucking video? So I'm making this video firstly because I think the Shinobird's effect, actually I don't think, I know for a fact that the effects that the Shinobirds have are absolutely broken. Like, they are beyond broken. They're like one of the most ridiculous things you will ever read in terms of card effects. But this deck is very, very, very underrepresented. You know, in other words, many people don't talk about it. And many people just don't play it or don't even know what it is. Now, obviously, you know, I'm not gonna act like I don't know why that is. You know, the deck does have its shortcomings as well. But it's still a very, very fun and like extremely fun deck actually to play in my opinion. And yeah, I just wanted to shed some light to it, you know, give it the spotlight and spread awareness, you could say. So I'm just gonna go over both of their effects because they are the most important cards in the deck. First with Mr. Shinobaron. He says that if this card is ritual summoned, you can return up to 3 monsters your opponent controls to the hand, then special summon one level 4 or lower spirit monster from your hand. So notice, that's on summon. So the moment you ritual summon him, you trigger his effect and automatically your opponent loses 3 monsters, which is obviously very, very crazy. This effect does not target, this effect does not destroy, and this effect does not send them to graveyard. So if they have any kind of grave effects, they're gone, because obviously they're gonna go back to the hand. And she has a similar effect, but for spell and trap cards. She says, if this card is ritual summoned, you can shuffle up to 3 spell and trap cards your opponent controls into the deck. Then you can special summon one level 4 or lower spirit from your deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. So you can clearly see their effects are really, really busted when going second, because you can pretty much just ritual summon them into any board and start clearing their board up. And what's important is that their effects aren't once per turn. So 9 times out of 10, the first one you summon is gonna get negated, obviously, because your opponent doesn't want to lose their field. But you can just summon another one and again do their effect and start bouncing stuff to the hand or start returning stuff to the deck. So that alone is pretty much priceless. You know, this is better than any Lightning Storm, this is better than any Dark Ruler, this is better than, you know, most go second cards. That alone is good. But the other thing, if you noticed, both of their effects summon a spirit monster, this one from the hand and this one from the deck, ignoring summoning conditions. So if it wasn't enough that they both get rid of cards without targeting, without destroying, and without sending to grave, they also get to summon any spirit monster of choice, and usually you're gonna be summoning Amano-Iwato. So this card might trigger some PTSD in some duelists, but basically he says that monsters cannot activate their effects except spirit monsters. So in other words, it just says monsters can't activate their effects, and that's anywhere, not in the hand, not in the grave, not in the anywhere. So this is basically a Mystic Mine in terms of, you know, not letting your opponent activate any monster effects. And even though he's a spirit monster, which means he's supposed to go back to the hand in the end phase, that only activates if he was normal summoned or flipped face up. But since you are special summoning him off of their effects, he actually gets to stay on the field permanently, which is pretty much how you win most duels. Because, I mean, you also win most duels just because you shuffle everything your opponent sets or summons back to the hand or back to the deck. But if that weren't enough, you get to summon a permanent Amano-Iwato, and this usually seals the game, you know. This is usually how people auto-scoop versus this deck. So that alone is really good. And that's what you will pretty much always do when going second. But now with Burst of Destiny, Konami gave us a brand new toy in the form of Transonic Bird. Actually, I like the theme behind it. Because basically the original one, Sonic Bird, if you guys remember, that card searches ritual spells. Well, this card, Transonic Bird, becomes the ritual spell. Because basically as a quick effect on your opponent's turn, he will send for cost any ritual spell from your deck to the graveyard and copy its effect So basically what Anaconda does, but for ritual monsters, which means that if you summon this going first, at any point in your opponent's turn, you can use its effect to dump and copy a ritual spell, and then you can ritual summon these to either bounce 3 of their monsters mid-combo, or if you're going against a trap deck, it's really nasty, because you can summon her, shuffle 3 of their spawn trap cards, and if that wasn't enough, then take a look at this. If you can end on double Transonic Bird, which you can often do, then during your opponent's end phase, you can use one of them to ritual summon out Shinobaroness. She will shuffle back 3 of your opponent's spell trap cards. Then her other effect activates, bouncing to the hand and summoning 2 tokens. Then you can use the other Transonic Bird to ritual summon her again by tributing the tokens you just summoned and shuffle back their last 2 spawn trap cards, completely getting rid of their back row. So that's basically the game plan with this deck. You know, going second, you summon him, you summon her, you break boards, you summon Amano-Iwato, you try to go for game, and if you don't go for game, you still have a permanent Amano-Iwato that they have to deal with. Or going first, you summon these 2 guys and you interrupt whatever they're trying to set up. So that's basically the game plan. I really like this deck because it's so trolly just by its nature. You know, being able to shuffle back or bounce back 3 of your opponent's cards non-targeting is very, very wacky. And you know, there's barely any cards. Actually, I can only think of 1 card that does something similar, which is Mistworm, the Synchro 9. But you know, there's very few cards in the game that can come close to doing what the Shinobirds do. So that's why I really like the deck. You know, it's just really fun and it's really funny to troll opponents with these cards. But now I'm going to do a couple of test hands because I feel that it's always better to show people what a deck can do before you actually show them a profile, because a lot of the choices, you know, the ratios and the choices, you know, card choices will make more sense if you actually see what the deck is trying to do and what the deck is trying to accomplish. So we have gotten here a pretty good shuffle. Let's choose, or let's draw our starting 5. All right, so I already like what I see. So we have Prosperity, Extravagance, Impcantation, Amano, and this thing. So what do I want to do with this hand? Definitely going to Extravagance. Now, you'll notice that I'm running 2 conflicting pot cards, both Prosperity and Extravagance. But there's a very specific reason for that, but I'll get to that when I get to it. So, banish 6, draw 1, draw 2. Let's see. Whoa, I like what I see and I see what I like. All right, so right now you're going to see exactly... Can I zoom in? Yeah, no, I'm going to keep this zoomed out. So right now you're going to see exactly why I'm playing both of the pot cards. So firstly, what do I want to do first? Let's activate Preparation of Rites. This is going to get us to our Transonic Bird and to its ritual spell, Sonic Tracker. Then I'm going to activate this. Let me just think real quickly on what to discard. All right, I'm ready. So this is the reason I'm running both pots, Prosperity and Extravagance. It's because this deck has access to Impcantation Chalislime, which is, if you don't know, basically his effect is to discard any card in your hand and summon an incantation from the deck. So if I ever have hands like this one, where I drew both pots, I can just use whichever one I feel I need, and I can use his effect to ditch the other one and summon an incantation from the deck. So basically, I still got a good use out of both of them, because this one made me go +1, and this one was basically discard fodder for this dude. So that's why I'm running both pots. It's because even if you see multiples, you can still benefit off of seeing them. But you have the option of going for either pot, depending on your hand and depending on the situation. So I'm going to use his effect, summon this from the deck, and use its effect. Basically, all the incantations they have an effect where if they're summoned from the deck, they will grab you a ritual spell or ritual monster either from the deck or from the graveyard. In this case, this guy grabs me a ritual spell from the deck. So I'm going to grab Incantation Inception, and I'm going to use it to ritual summon a Transonic Bird. So this is assuming I'm going first. I'm going to tribute a level 4 to summon a level 4 Transonic Bird. Now, I'm going to use its on-field effect, which lets me reveal a ritual spell in my hand, shuffle it into the deck, and then search out the ritual monster that's listed on that spell. So I basically exchanged this for this. Now I get to use Inception in the graveyard. Hold up, let me move this closer. There we go. So I'm going to use Impcantation Inception in the graveyard. It basically sends an incantation from the hand or field to the grave, and then summons any incantation from the deck. So in this case, I'm just going to summon another copy of Talismandra, and then it adds itself back to the hand. Now on a new chain link, this will activate. When this is summoned from the deck, this searches any ritual monster. So let us search Shinobird, or Shinobaron I should say, Peacock. And now I get to use this again, so I can activate it, ritual summon. So I'm going to tribute a level 6 to special summon or ritual summon a level 4. And with that, I am done. So what do we have here? Basically, at any point during my opponent's turn, I can use either of their effects as a quick effect to send the Shinobird ritual spell to the graveyard and ritual summon either of these guys. And most likely, I would basically tribute, let's say I activate this, I could tribute himself and Chalislime, 4 and 7 is 11, to summon this guy. His effect will activate. I get to spin or bounce 3 of my opponent's cards to the hand and special summon an Amano-Iwato. And this is going to stay on the field permanently. And if I didn't do that, or if this got stopped, if my opponent activates, for example, something like a field spell card or something like a continuous spell card, for example, Virtual World Qinglong or anything of the sort, I can use this dude's effect, tribute this dude, and then special summon this chick. She will shuffle the spells or traps my opponent has, and then I get to summon from the deck, again, a Amano-Iwato, who will be permanently on the field. Which is extremely, obviously, good, because my opponent can't activate any monster effect while this is in play. So that hinders most strategies in Yu-Gi-Oh, I would say. So that's basically the game plan. I'm not going to lie, that hand was actually pretty good. But then again, most hands are pretty good when you're playing Shinobirds, bro. Come on. So anyways, I'm just gonna do, I think, one more test hand, because I just wanted to show off what the deck did. And that was a pretty good example of pretty much an ideal scenario, where you get to summon 2 Transonic Bird, and you get to have both of the Shinos in your hand. Because not every hand goes like that. Sometimes you can only end on 1 Transonic Bird, or sometimes... Actually, yeah, pretty much that's the difference. Also, if your opponent hand traps you, that's gonna, that's gonna then change what you can do and can't do. So, yeah, let's get a good shuffle in here. And let us draw our 5 cards. Let's see what we got here. So we got what we got. I think this works. I'm pretty sure this works. I mean, I'm not pretty sure. I know this works. I just want to see how far I can take it. Well, firstly, again, let's activate Preparation of Rites. We'll be searching Transonic Bird and Sonic Tracker. Now we're gonna summon Diviner of the Herald, activate its effect. Sending a Herald of the Arclight from my extra to the graveyard. Then Arclight is going to trigger. I get to search. Yeah, and this is going to be a very similar turn to last turn. So I'm going to use this to search this. I'm going to use his effect. This time we're going to discard Shinobaron Peacock and summon from our deck a Impcantation Candoll. Now Candoll is going to trigger. I get to search a, where you at, boy? Impcantation Inception. Now we activate Inception. I tribute a level 4 to ritual summon a level 4. Use its effect. I return this to the deck and I search the ritual monster it belongs to, Transonic Bird. Now we're going to use this thing's great effect. I send a incantation from my hand or field as cost. I get to special summon another incantation. This goes back to the hand. Now this triggers. I get to search a ritual monster. And pretty straightforward. One more time, we're going to activate this ritual summon, tribute level 6, summon level 4. Whoops. And this is a very similar field that, I mean, this is pretty much the same exact setup that as the last test hand. I basically have double bird, and I have each of the Shinobarons in my hand, but I don't have an Amano-Iwato in my hand. So that means that if they summon a monster or monsters, I can bounce them back to the hand with this guy, but I don't get to summon Amano-Iwato for free from my hand. But I have a benefit right now, which is that whenever I activate either of their effects, I'm going to send the Shinobird ritual spell from the deck to graveyard. And this says that I can also banish spirit monsters from the graveyard as part of the ritual summoning requirement. Which means that whenever I activate it, let's say I activate this guy, I send the ritual spell. Now I can actually banish this dude from my graveyard. So that gets banished, and I basically get to summon either of them out for free, because I didn't actually have to tribute anything from my hand or field. And obviously, you know, this is going to wreak havoc. If I summon her, she's going to wreak havoc, and you just keep on going from there. So that's basically the game plan of the deck. Again, you don't actually always end on double bird. I guess those were just really nice hands. But there's many hands where I'll just end on one bird, but still, even ending on one bird is very good, because all you need really is to end on one of them so you can summon out, you know, either of these and interrupt your opponent. Ending on two is just gravy, you know, on top. It's a gravy on top. So that was a pretty good test hand, or a pretty good 2 test hands. So now I'm actually going to show you the deck profile and explain to you some of the ratios of the cards. Alright, so let's get into the profile. So I have 3 Diviner of the Herald and 3 Manju of the 10,000 Hands. Basically, these are my 6 normal summons. They do the exact same thing. When they're summoned, they search a ritual spell or ritual monster. I mean, technically Diviner doesn't actually search anything, but you know, you send Herald of the Arclight, and when it's sent to a grave, will search you any ritual spell or ritual monster. So basically, these are my only 6 normal summons, aside from Amano-Iwato, but I'll get to that later. But I am running a 47 card deck, so it's actually not that likely that I'll see multiples of these in my hand, because again, it's only 6 and 47. So that is the reason behind that. Alright, so then we have 3 Preparation of Rites. This card is really nutty. It searches any ritual spell and any ritual monster that is listed on that ritual spell. So basically, this can search the Shinobird spell plus either of the Shinos, because they're both listed on that ritual spell. And as you saw in the test hands, I can also search Transonic Bird and its ritual spell. So, you know, mandatory 3 of. Then we have 3 Preparation of Rites, which, by the way, this card is not once per turn, so you can resolve all 3 in one turn. But basically, it searches any level 7 or lower ritual. So I can search either my Chalislime, which will then get me to pretty much any ritual card in my deck, or I can just hard search Transonic Bird. So, you know, again, another mandatory 3 of. And actually, that's one of the really good things with ritual decks. You know, the thing with rituals is that ritual as a mechanic is so bad that they need to make the most broken support possible and give them the most amount of good cards to actually be able to make them somewhat playable. But yeah, that's that. Then we have 3 Impcantation Chalislime. As you saw in the test hands, this card is very important because it gets me to any card in my deck, basically, by summoning the Incantations. So mandatory 3 of. Then we have 3 Pot of Extravagance and 3 Pot of Prosperity. So since this is a ritual deck, your extra deck does not matter at all. I mean, if you want to, you can play some rank 4s because of the birds and the Manju. And you can also play some rank 8s because of the Shinobirds. And I actually recommend that you should play rank 8s. But for the most part, your extra deck does not matter. So that's why, you know, I run the pots. And like I said in the first test hand, if you ever draw multiples of them, you can just discard the one you don't need with this dude. So you still benefit off of the pot cards. You just use the one you need and then you discard the one you don't. So they're never really dead. And now we have the most peculiar part of the deck, the Incantations. So look, I am a huge advocate for either running a deck with 39 cards plus Upstart or 37 cards plus some kind of pot card, you know, Prosperity, Extravagance, whatever. But the Incantations are very peculiar because you really want to run multiples of them, but you don't ever want to see more than one in your hand. If you noticed in the replays, or I should say in the test hands, both of them I drew an Incantation, and I'm pretty sure that I didn't even use their hand effects. I only used them as discard fodder to use the grave effect of Impcantation Inception. So most of the times, you only really need one of them. Basically, I'm gonna put them on screen if you want to read them because the ones I have here are in Spanish. But basically, they all have an effect in hand to special summon themselves and another incantation from the deck. And they all have an on-field effect that says if it's summoned from the deck, it'll add you a ritual spell or ritual monster. This one adds it from the deck, a ritual spell. This one adds a ritual monster from the deck. This one adds a ritual spell from the grave, and this one adds a ritual monster from the grave. So very, very good effects, but you can't use both effects. You know, the reveal from hand to special and the on-field effect. You can't use both effects in the same turn. So what that means is that, for example, if I hard draw this guy, if I use his hand effect, then I can't use his field effect in the same turn, which is actually why in the test hands, I didn't even use their hand effects. You know, I drew this guy in one of them and this guy in the other one. I didn't even bother using their hand effects because then I couldn't use their on-field effects. So that's why you really don't want to actually open that many incantations. You only want to open one, so you can then summon multiple others from the deck. And also with the Impcantation spell card, you get to keep summoning more from the deck. And with Impcantation Chalislime, you get to keep summoning more from the deck. So again, you don't really want to be drawing that many for that reason. But you also don't want to like play one of each, because if you draw one, for example, in the second test hand, I drew this guy, right? Because I drew him, if I only played one, I wouldn't have any other one to summon from the deck, so I have no way of searching Inception, because the only way I can search this card is by having one of this guy still in the deck. So yeah, basically you need to play at least two of this and two of this, which are the more important ones, because you don't want to play one and then draw it and have it dead because you don't have any summon from the deck. But you also don't want to play too many for the reasons I've stated. So to make a very long story short, the Impcantations make deck building very, very peculiar. And that's why I'm running 47 cards. I feel like that was a really long run-on sentence. But that whole spiel is the reason I'm running 47 cards. It's because basically I don't actually want to draw these, but I need to play multiples of each. Especially because this one and this one are actually good to draw. But again, I don't want to max out on them because I don't really want to draw too many incantations to begin with. So yeah. Yeah. You know, it's something you really gotta tinker with, and it took me a while to figure out how many incantations I want to run, but for the time being, I'm liking this ratio. So after that, we have 2 copies of Nibiru. Admittedly, I could probably cut this, but this is basically from a time before Transonic Bird existed. because basically the biggest weakness of this deck was going first. You know, it had a couple of going first plays, but they weren't that great. And this deck was really susceptible to being OTK'd. So Nibiru was one of the best measures against being OTK'd. You know, aside from playing something like Waboku, but that's just silly. Also, since Nibiru is a high level monster, that means that even if I don't use its hand effect, you know, to tribute the whole field, I can still use it as the tribute for the incantations, because the incantations are level 8 and this is level 11. So I still get value out of it. Then I have 2 Amano-Iwato. These used to be 3 before I put in Diviner of the Heralds, because sometimes it will come up when going second that you could actually normal summon Amano-Iwato to turn off all of your opponent's like negates. Like if they have a Palooza, Savage, whatever, you can turn them off, and then you can just summon the Shinobirds. And since the Shinobirds are ritual and spirit monsters, they can activate, because Amano-Iwato only says that you can't activate unless you are a spirit monster. And you know, that did come up and that still does come up, but in order to make the deck consistent, I had to cut a couple of cards, because I used to be playing this at 3, and I had to cut a couple of cards that weren't really starters. And at the end of the day, this isn't really a starter, you know. And since I'm running 6 other normal summons, it doesn't come up anymore too much that I want to actually summon him out. You know, it's much preferable to just summon Manju or Diviner. So yeah, that's the reason behind 2. But you definitely don't want to play 1. Because you always want to have at least one of them in deck, so that you can always summon one off of Shinobaroness Peacock, which summons from the deck. So, you know, if you only play one and you draw it, then you can never actually get her effect to summon it from the deck, which is very free, very, very free. So that's why I play 2. Then we have the All-Stars. We have Shinobaron Peacock and also Shinobaroness Peacock. So I'm playing 3 of each, because it's actually okay to hard draw them, you know, even though they're not starters, because they don't actually like search out anything, so they don't actually help you get your play started. They are still part of the play, you know. You still want to eventually summon them out, and if you hard draw them, that makes your hand a little bit more resilient against hand traps. Because obviously, if you, for example, draw this going second and they have a bunch of back row, and they negate your search of a ritual monster, then you already have her in the hand, you know. So it's okay to hard draw them. And also because, again, I'm trying to maximize the amount of cards in my deck so that I actually don't draw too many incantations. You know, I want to draw, or I'd rather draw pretty much any card in my deck other than drawing too many incantations. So these were okay cards to max out, and so far that, you know, they really work for me at 3. Then we have 2 Transonic Bird. This card's really good, as you saw, when I go first, but when I go second, they don't really do anything. So that's why I'm only playing 2 and not 3. But I still play 2, because as you saw in both test hands, you can actually summon 2 first turn often. And also the incantations can grab them back from the grave to the hand. So yeah, that's the reason behind that. But definitely this is the MVP of the deck. You know, this helps you go first and not let your opponent establish their board. So it's really, 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 really good. And I love the fact that this card was printed. Then you have the ritual spell cards. So 3 Shinobirds Calling. Yeah, I once tried to cut these to 2 because I wanted to have as many starter cards as possible. And this, I mean, technically you need this to ritual summon, but you know, I'd rather draw something like a Manju or a Chalislime that can search me anything in the deck than hard draw something like this that, you know, if I don't already have the other pieces, like for example the ritual plus you know, monsters to actually tribute, this doesn't do anything in the hand. But yeah, that didn't work out when I tried to cut this down to 2. You really need to play 3. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Then we have Impcantation Inception. You only need 1, because as you saw in the test hands, this has an effect, hard once per turn, to add itself from the graveyard to the hand. So once you see it, it's always going to be in rotation. You know, you're always going to have access to it unless it gets banished. But you know, if they banish it, then they banish it, whatever. But very important card. Then we have Sonic Tracker. So as you saw in the replays, I actually don't use this to ritual summon Transonic Bird too often, but this is extremely important for two reasons. Number one, by playing it, it means that this card can search out Sonic Tracker plus Transonic Bird. So basically this turns into another way to search Transonic Bird. That's number one. Number two is that this has a grave effect. You can banish this card from the graveyard, then target one ritual in your graveyard, send a ritual monster with the same type or attribute from your deck to the graveyard. So what that means is that if I actually do get this card in the graveyard, either by discarding it or by using it to ritual summon, I can banish it, target Transonic Bird, who is a winged beast, and then I can send either of the Shinobarons, who are also winged beasts, to the graveyard. And what that means, let's say I'll have her in the graveyard and I'll have this guy on the field. Once I use his effect to send the Shinobird a ritual spell and copy it, I'll be able to actually banish the monster I sent, a Foolish Burial, as the ritual cost to summon one of the Shinobirds from my hand. So basically, by having this in the graveyard and using its grave effect, I set myself up to have a free ritual summon on my opponent's turn, because I won't have to actually tribute monsters from my hand or field. So that's also another important reason to run this card. So then the second to last card is Called by the Grave, because fuck hand traps. And the last card is Harpie's Feather Duster, because fuck floodgates. Unless it's on my field, because if I summon a floodgate, then it's cool. But if my opponent activates a floodgate, then it's not cool. So the one of Harpies, just in case. And that is the deck list. Onto the extra deck. So I'm gonna keep it real. I don't have the extra deck how I'd like it, mostly because I almost always banish everything with so many pots. Running six pot cards, you almost always end up banishing a lot of your extra deck. But I will show you what is important. I run 3 Herald of the Arclight for Diviner of the Herald. I run 3 Elder Entity Entis, again for Diviner of the Herald. And I run 3 Knightmare Phoenix. This can be any generic link 2. The important thing is that you need a generic link 2 that you can summon by using Amano-Iwato as material, because there will be some game states where you'll have Amano-Iwato on the field and you'll have incantations in your hand that you could activate or that you would like to activate, but you can't activate them because of Amano-Iwato. And sometimes it's good to be able to link this off so you can actually activate your incantations and go for game. Obviously, if you're not going to go for game, then I wouldn't suggest that play. But, sometimes it is important to link off Amano, so that's why I'm playing these, because they're the best generic link 2s, aside from summoning something like Anaconda. Then, I should be playing 3 of these, but I don't own 3 of these. But basically, one of the few things that this deck can't out is unaffected monsters with high attack, because obviously if I can't affect them, then I can't bounce them to the hand. So I would definitely run 3 of these, because of Extravagance, because this basically boosts itself to like 5600 attack, and obviously you can make this by overlaying the 2 Shinobirds. So I would definitely play 3 of this if I owned it. And another card I would play, specifically because of the format, is the Xyz that is on screen right now, because basically one of the few other cards that gets around the Shinobirds is Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. Basically, if they're smart on when they use Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer and they are able to resolve its grave effect to revive itself the next turn, I basically have no way of stopping it from reviving, because if he already resolved his effect to revive, even if I summon an Amano-Iwato, he's still gonna revive in the next standby phase, and he's just gonna beat over Amano-Iwato. But if I summon the Xyz that's on screen, whose name I can't remember right now, and I resolve its effect, then that will basically stop DPE from reviving itself. So I would definitely consider running that as well. Then I just have some other filler cards here. This is just, for the meme, just in case I ever actually am able to resolve that. Geonator, just because why not? Asa, because why not? Borrowload, because why not? Another Geonator, because why not? and Link Spider because Geonator requires 2 effect monsters. So if I ever have like a Shinobird token and I want to make Geonator, then I can, you know, Link Spider and summon this. But definitely I would much rather, as I said, run 3 of this and the XYZ I put up on the screen. And yeah, that is the extra deck.
One more thing!
By far, the most important card in my list isn't even in the extra or the main deck. The most important card in my list and in any Shinobird list is the tokens that you summon off of the Shinobirds. So I got 4 Kuribo tokens, you know, to let your opponent know that they're not dealing with no amateur. But yeah, just wanted to show those off a little bit. But yeah, now I'm actually done with the list. So yeah, that is the video. Hope y'all enjoyed it. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. This is an extremely fun deck for me to play. Like I said, I love the troll factor of being able to just destroy your opponent's board, like completely blow it up. And summoning this dude, you know, basically this is a permanent Mystic Mine, except for the fact that I can actually attack them. But you know, it's a permanent Mystic Mine for them because they can't activate any monster effects. You know, they can try to attack me, but with 1900 attack, you know, good luck getting over this without actually activating any monster effects. And even then, you know, one of the worst things you can do for your opponent is that you can summon this but still have Transonic Bird on the field, which means that even if they out the Amano-Iwato or negate it, they still have to deal with this, summoning one of the Shinobirds as a quick effect on their turn. So, you know, this deck to me is just very fun, very trolly. So yeah, that's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace, take care, Drip TCG signing out. Bitches!